We have a really beautiful image of God in Hosea chapter 11, where the Lord is presented as a very loving and patient parent. Our verse of the day is Hosea chapter 11, verse 4. I led them with cords of human kindness, with bands of love. I was to them like those who lift infants to their cheeks. I bent down to them and fed them. If you read all of Hosea chapter 11, which I encourage you to do, it's a description of how God is saying, when Israel was like a child, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called my son, which is an image that is then used for Jesus, who you remember as an infant, the Holy Family flees to Egypt, and then after Herod dies, Joseph gets the word that it's safe to come back. And the New Testament church looked at this verse from Hosea 11:1 of out of Egypt I called my son, then as referring to Jesus. But in Hosea 11, Israel is portrayed as like a rebellious child who keeps running away from his parents and running away and doing things they're not supposed to do. And yet God's attitude, God's approach is always, I led them with cords of kindness, with bands of love. I bent down to them and fed them and cared for them. And sadly, what we hear is that the people reject all of this and refuse to return to the Lord. They are bent on turning away from me, says the Lord. And that yet God, like a parent, is saying, how can I give you up? How can I hand you over? My compassion grows warm and tender. Any of us who are blessed to have children, I think can relate to the perspective that God is sharing in this chapter. Our children, even the very, very best children, there can be times when it's hard to be patient, when children don't listen, when they may be disobedient or rebellious or go another way. And yet, like the Lord, hopefully we strive to be loving and compassionate and patient and to keep acting that way towards our children. This image of God in Hosea chapter 11 is one that we see echoed, I believe, in Jesus' story of the Father with the two sons in Luke chapter 15. The behavior of the father in that parable, you remember the one son who asks for his share of the inheritance and goes and squanders it in a far country and ends up in a feeding pigs, which is a low as a Jewish boy could sink. The father in that story is very much like the father in Hosea. And that's again an example of Jesus knowing and sharing from the scriptures in his own teaching. So God, both in the Old Testament and in the New, is like a loving and a patient parent. And we can all thank God for that.